We said in our David Lynch memorial episode that each of his movies deserves its own episode, and we're going to kick that off by talking about Lost Highway. This is I Have No Title and I Must podcast. We're your hosts, Tyler
and Chris.
And so we just decided Lost Highway, not necessarily because it's the best or the worst. It's just what we collectively have seen the most recent. And I say collectively because I think you have watched a few more since...
I have, but I still watched that pretty recently.
Yeah. So where to start with this one?
Yeah,
I think we should start by saying that there's going to be spoilers here because we're discussing different aspects of the movie.
A movie that came out in 1997.
So if you've not seen it, this is your warning.
If you're planning on, you've been putting off David Lynch films and you're like, and he just died and you're like, man, I really got to get to those. You could watch them in order. I don't necessarily think you have to. If this one you haven't watched yet, watch it, come back, join the discussion. This is it's one of the ones that I think people say are one of the best. Some people say this is their favorite. Some people say Mulholland Drive is their favorite. Also, I think it's hard to talk about a David Lynch film if you haven't recently watched it.
Yeah.
Because if your memory, even if you have a really great memory for films or in general, if you watched a David Lynch film and time has passed, you may well think back on it and are like, wait, did that really happen in that? Or am I imagining that? Because I've seen a lot of normal films since then, and that feels more like a fever dream to me.
Yeah. Not only that, there's certain details that you might overlook because they don't seem important at the time.
Yes, for sure.
But are majorly important.
Yeah, and that's why, some of his films are... We've talked about, the films of his that you would either watch immediately again or have the inclination to. This is one of those ones that I think you could start over immediately after. I don't recommend that for your mental health, but you could and get a totally different experience after having watched it twice in a row. What's it about?
All right. I'm just going to read the IMDb listing on it because it's a Lynch movie. It's hard to really narrow down. But IMDb says, anonymous videotapes presage a musician's murder conviction and a gangster's girlfriend leads a mechanic astray.
That's actually surprisingly succinct and accurate. Yeah.
That's the IMDb description. But obviously it's a David Lynch film, so it's more complicated than that.
Much. Where to begin with this? There's two main characters, and are they the same guy? Because there's two. It's similar to, if you've not seen this one, but you saw Mulholland Drive, because everybody, I think more people say Mulholland Drive is maybe Lynch's best film or their favorite. Some people still, I almost think this is a simpler version. Not a simpler version of that, but a lot of his films deal with duality, as we talked about in our Lynch retrospective. And this one definitely has that aspect to it. It's one of the main ones that does. Wild at heart, not necessarily, but it's these two people go on a romp through Southern America.
Yeah, but essentially two movies that play as one.
Yeah, the characters, in Mulholland Drive, a bunch of stuff happens, and then the movie kind of stops and restarts, and everything's different. It's all the same people, all the same actors, but some of them have different names or very different personalities. And one of them is most likely a dream, and one of them is most likely reality. And that's really a lot of people think is Lynch's take on the dark Hollywood underbelly. This isn't that. It's like a crime drama. Also, I did want to just interject. It begins with this guy. He's got one of those speakers at his front door so somebody can intercom him. And somebody says, Dick Laurent is dead, and they walk away. And before the guy can see who is at his door, and talking about the main character, nobody's there. Turns out, and Lynch said this in an interview, I didn't just read it, I saw him say this came from that actually happening to him. Same name and everything. He got a little buzz and hit the button, and somebody said, Dick Laurent is dead. And he didn't see who it was, and it just became a mystery to him. Now, they most likely he did say his neighbor was also named David. So clearly, that clears up part of the mystery. They just got the wrong door by one door. But what the Even still, like, what was it? What did his neighbor have going on that somebody just told him this brief message about this guy being taken care of or having died, like, really callously and just moving along? Still, though, that's, like, wild at heart. And weird on top. So that was the seed that David had to plant this whole movie and base this around. It's got a cyclical nature to it on top of the dualistic thing. And I've heard so many different theories about it. So let's run through the whole thing, like breakneck speed, and then go back and pick aspects apart, because there's some things that are in contention that can be better not obvious. And you might have an extremely different take on what I had. So this guy's a jazz musician. He's a saxophone player. He's shown to be doing that. He has trouble in bed with this woman who has a mysterious past. I think they're married. Yeah. So they're receiving videotapes, as per the synopsis, of just in their house. I think they're maybe sleeping. It shows them sleeping.
Yeah, some of them they're sleeping. One of them, I don't know if they're even home. They're just
just like through the house. Yeah. So they tell the police about it. And he even has a line where he says something about, like, I like to remember things my way. And the cop's like, what do you mean? And he was like, the way I'd prefer, not necessarily the way things happen.
Just kind of clear up that he doesn't have a video camera.
Yeah. And so where do we go from there? Then they go to some party. The woman is seen being obviously more comfortable with, like, other people, and he's kind of pushed to the background a bit. Then the weird man, is that Blake?
Yeah, Robert Blake.
Yeah. He comes up to him at this party, and this is the scene that everybody talks about, that is like, what was that about? And tells him they've met before. He doesn't know him. And he said, sure we have. Don't you remember, at your house? In fact, I'm there right now. Call me. And the guy takes a cell phone, dials the number to his home address, and that guy answers. And he's like, how are you doing this? And then that's kind of it. Then they part company, and he's like, let's get the out of here. What was that about? He's then like, what? I'm fuzzy on, because his wife dies.
Yeah.
And they accuse him of it.
Remember if there's a scene in between that, or if it just kind of cuts to something else. He's out, comes home, she's dead.
Yeah, because it's really vague as to, it does not show her getting killed, and it's vague as to if he did it. And I don't necessarily think that it's heavily implied. It almost feels like a Shawshank thing.
Yeah,
like
didn't they say something like the videotape proved it or something?
Yeah, I think so. And there's different sets of cops for different portions of this film that feel like allegories to themselves. Like they feel like the same guy but different. And that's got to be intentional on Lynch's part. But far be it for me to decipher everything he does. So, long story short, his wife dies. He gets accused of the murder. And in like no time at all, he's just wrapped up in prison. I think he maintains his innocence because he doesn't remember doing it or not doing it, and claims he would not have done it. So in prison, there's this weird thing that happens where this blue light is shown in his cell that he looks up and sees, and then all of a sudden, through some mysterious force, he is then someone else who has like an injury on his head. I think when we first see him, he's got a huge knot on his head, and it's a younger mechanic.
Yeah, and he doesn't remember how he got there.
Yeah.
Or what happened before that.
No. They're forced to let him go, but they're still going to keep tabs on him. He's not necessarily like up and up, but not also like, because he kind of runs in a few different circles. Like Gary Busey plays his dad.
Yeah. And something with Gary Busey. Like, was he acting in that movie? Or did he really have no idea what was going on?
Well, he didn't have many lines, so who can say?
But he just always has this look on his face like, I don't know why I'm here, but we're going to figure it out.
Yeah. So this guy is actually really good with ladies. Multiple ladies. He's got a nice circle of friends, all leather clad, like hooligan looking people, but his parents seem to... You know, it's like, it was kind of heartwarming to see, like, you know, not everybody who dresses like that is a bad guy. And it was nice to see Lynch include that concept, not overtly, because his parents could have easily said, after everything that had happened, because it was an ordeal, and they don't want to tell him everything they know about the night that whatever happened, because we still don't know. They tell him, like, you should get out and go out with your friends. And at some point, they come and pick him up, and then they all leave together, and they're like, I'm going out for a bit. it. And they're like, good, they'll be good for you. And I just thought, most other directors probably, even with like roughneck parents, probably would have had a line in there about like, you need to straighten up or you need to stop hanging out with these people that are a bad influence. But it wasn't that. It was, you should get out with your friends, get your mind off things, get some fresh air, stop brooding. And I like that concept that like, just because people dress a certain way, like just because you dress like a punk and you might seem scary to the normies or the townies, like good people are good people. And you have to talk to somebody to get to know them. So, and I love that hometown American apple pie attitude that Lynch
his character
has.
To me seemed like one of those like, hey, made a few stupid choices as a kid, maybe got me in trouble. But I'm not really a bad guy, but the bad guy takes a liking to him.
Yeah.
And that sets off his problems.
Yeah, so as a mechanic, we see this guy's normal daily life. He works at a body shop, which this had to be, was this one of Richard Pryor's last roles?
Yeah.
Because
I think it was, actually.
If not his final role, I was surprised to see him in this. I don't think there's any scene where he stands in it.
No. I think it's also the final role of, what's his face, played in Eraserhead.
Oh, Jack Nance?
Yeah. He plays one of the other mechanics. I think this was his last. I think he died before the film was actually released.
Yeah. And there's, if we ever want to get into like true crime, that would probably be our doorway. It's like that guy's story. And if you don't know, I'm not doing it here, but yeah. So, I don't remember this. I just looked this up. Oh, okay, yes. It was that was Richard Pryor's last film role. It was his final film role. They played footage of him in Me, Myself, and Irene, and somehow in Superbad. I do not remember him being in Superbad, but it was archival footage, so counted, I guess. But his final actual acting role was this David Lynch film. I was like, Rich, really? And he was there, and it wasn't like a comedy thing either. It was just there. Just Lynch was like, yeah, Richard Pryor, let's do it. So there's a mob boss or gangster or somebody. It's kind of vague with him too. He's pretty important, just exactly what you're imagining if you haven't seen the film. He knows this guy does good work, and he's taken a liking to him and kind of wants to make him one of his people. And this guy is unhinged. He, when a guy like tailgates him, he gets behind him and like rams him off the road and pulls him out of his car and like pistol whips him and beats the out of him and tells him to like reread the
driver's manual.
Like the rules of the road, and like he just quotes all these things to him, but he's like screaming at him while he's like holding him by his lapels and stuff, and it's crazy. That also, I think, was David Lynch inserting a little bit of himself in there, as he said he has wanted to do that at times with people. He holds himself back because he's very composed, transcendental meditationist. So anyway, this guy is trying to figure out what's going on with him because he's suffering like headaches, and he does not like jazz. Just a little detail there, because we don't know what or who this guy is. Should probably move through this bit faster, because this is the portion where I think a lot of contention lies. Is this guy just a dream or affectation, hallucination, fantasy of the original main character, the jazz saxophonist?
Yeah, because when the police look in and he's in the cell, they're like, oh, it's a different guy, and they release him and all that. But at the same time, that also feels like all those events precede that point to him being there.
Right, yeah.
So
that guy gets caught up with the gangster. He meets that guy's girlfriend or something. I don't think they're married.
Ends up in a love affair.
Yeah.
She's some kind of porn actress, or was, maybe still is.
It is also heavily... It's the same woman that the original guy was married to.
Well, played by the same actress.
Yeah, played by the same actress, but she has a different name, obviously. There's this duality element to it.
Because at one point you do see a picture of them together.
You do, and that's not just in his mind. We also see like a third version, maybe, of, just very briefly, when... Well, we'll get to that. So... She starts seeing him, she takes a liking to him, and they meet secretly. The gangster kind of knows something's going on, and he vaguely threatens the guy, and he comes back. There's a lot of just like, this guy having sex, or whatever. This whole scene's committed to him having sex with different people. So, as they go on, she knows a guy, she says, he knows about us, or if he doesn't, he's going to, so we need to skip town. We need a lot of money. Real fast. I know a guy we can knock off and take his money, and I know his routine and all this. And he's like, like, how do you know all this stuff? And she's like, yeah, I'm kind of a shady character. You know this. Come on. So they go to this guy's place with like a full-on detailed plan to kill and rob him.
Was their initial plan to kill him or just knock him out, and that didn't work?
I think that her plan was to kill him, and she was duping him into just kind of coming there and thinking they could knock him out and do that. But I think, like, due to the way that she handled herself, she had absolutely no regard for, like, what was going to happen one way or another, and knew that it could go sideways. So when they do, I think, finally kill him, it was kind of an accident anyway, because he falls into this like glass table or something. But it is so it's an odd scene because there's this movie playing like kind of on a screen, like from a projector that's like a porn film with her in it.
And I think that's where we kind of put two and two together of what the original guy's wife may have been up to before.
Yeah, because there's a lot of similar dialogue between the two.
Because she also had some kind of relationship with this guy.
Yeah, this is
clearly like a porn producer.
And that was one of the only guys that like bridges the two worlds, right?
Yeah.
So he goes upstairs for something at some point and opens this door, and there's like kind of this weird scene of him seeing her all in red light, like also having sex with somebody. Is that a third version? Is it just... who knows? Because I don't think it's real. Having said that, what is real in these films? Again. So we go back down, and Marilyn Manson's in this because he is in the film that they were watching. He also that's where he sees the picture of the two women, and he says, "Is that you? Is both of them you?" Which is weird, a really weird line, because he's having some cognitive issues at this point because of everything. He's just a mechanic who's gotten wrapped up in this crazy gangster porn life, and he doesn't want to be there. It's all a bit too much for him. So when you see something, a photo like that, it's like, do you have a twin? What am I seeing? What is happening? In the film they're watching, I think you see somebody get killed. Now, here's where we get into my original theory, having watched this, and I haven't seen anybody else have this, and that could well mean that I'm just wrong, because everything else might have been more obvious than I was. But my initial thought was that was a snuff film that they were watching, because I think you see them kill. So I think Marilyn Manson is shown dead, or maybe Twiggy. I can't remember, because it's a couple people from Manson's band. I don't know all their names.
Danzig's in there somewhere too.
Oh, and Henry Rollins played one of the prison guards.
Yeah, maybe that's what I'm thinking. Henry Rollins.
So my initial thought was that they framed him for the initial murder somehow with the videotapes, because videotapes were involved. So who's doing this? Also, the weird man. Blake is in places. Who the knows what that guy is, if he's friend, if he's foe, because he's just vaguely menacing and threatening, and then also overtly menacing and threatening. So they go out onto the titular Lost Highway after having left there. And again, at this point, my thought was that they make snuff films and that they framed the saxophone player. That is nobody else's assessment. So I don't know. I'll mention at the end what some other people were thinking. One idea that I was like, damn it, that's really good, but that's not what I thought. So they go out on the Lost Highway. They go out into the desert, and there's like this place. It's like a little shack on stilts, kind of like a raised building. It's really weird. And they have sex out in the desert, and then when he stands up, the mechanic guy, he is the original character again, the saxophone player. He says to her, before he changes though, he says something about them getting away and being together, and she says, "You'll never have me," which prompts the change somehow. What is the change? How is the change? Who knows? She goes into the house, he goes in it after her, and she is not there. He sees the weird man and the Robert Blake, and he tells him that, like, I think her name is not her real name, or whatever she told him is not her real name. He's got a video camera there, I think, and he's just vaguely menacing and threatening to him. However, like, the gangster guy, when he shows up, it's the Robert Blake weird character that kills him ultimately and is like protecting the protagonist. So the movie ends with him on the run from the cops. Oh yeah, before that though, he goes to his home, and after they've just killed Dick Laurent, the gangster guy, he goes up to the buzzer and says Dick Laurent is dead. Like, tightening the loop, like finishing the loop. That's how the movie began. That is not how it ends, though, because he goes on the run from the cops, and it cuts to night. I think it was only just day or morning, so it cuts to night. So he's been on the run for a very long time. Then he's suffering some sort of change again. He begins to visibly change, and it's distressing, and there's some weird film elements to it, but we do not see what happens next.
It just cuts to black.
Yeah. And David Bowie. So, your assessment.
One thing that my assessment is Robert Blake was the devil.
Okay.
So, I think that explains a lot of his weirdness and capabilities. To what end he was trying to do, I'm still piecing that together. But that's my assessment of him. As far as the other stuff, that's where I'm getting... Because it's like, I could piece together something, I could throw something together, but there's just certain elements that just breaks that. Because, again, it's like, yeah, they found the guy in the cell, so that seems like a new point. Like, not a past event, so him letting out is current. But everything that happens after they let him out of the cell seems to precede the first half of the movie.
Yep.
Especially since it ends with him coming back to his own house to tell himself that this has happened.
So time travel and a time loop.
Yeah.
And alternate parallel, possibly. Yeah. When you make a movie with dream logic, you can break people. Because I don't think this is necessary. Maybe it does to David. Maybe it did. We'll never know, and it'll be an endless debate. I'll tell you one of the most compelling, and I've listened to multiple theories about this. Some people completely ignored certain aspects of it, and not to say that that ruined their theory, or that it would have been a deal breaker for that, just to say that like a lot of people tend to focus in on specific things, and then that be that. So this one guy's theory... I wish I could remember who it was. I feel really bad about this. I'll have to see if I can find it. But this was weeks ago that I was looking at this. I could probably eventually find it again. Because I'm not played. This is not my idea. I just can't remember. It was a guy who had a YouTube video essayist. But it would take me too long to find it right now. So try and find that and put that in the comments. And if anybody's listening and they keep looking for the thing that I keep promising year after year to like add this stuff in, eventually I will. But this is not my idea. I am not. If this is you and you're somehow listening to this, please like, share, and subscribe. But also engage in the conversation, because yours was the theory that I think is the closest to making
the electric chair theory.
That, and maybe it's not even his. Maybe it precedes him talking about it. But it's so when he's in the cell, he's not really in the cell. He's in the electric chair, and what he sees is blue light is representative of him being electrocuted. Everything that happens after that is a hallucination, fascination, his brain glitching.
Like your life before your eyes.
Yeah, that sort of thing. And then what we see at the very end with him in the car kind of burning away or melting even is the conclusion of that. I neither like nor dislike that. I don't like it because I was like, actually makes a lot of sense. Because what I thought was that, you know, he's changed into this other guy. If we just take everything at face value and say there's no metaphors here, everything that is happening. It's just how or why, and it's not necessarily going to be explained, because there's even mysteries within this mystery that are not even addressed, because there are things that characters in this know that aren't sharing with our protagonists, which would share with us, the audience. I thought maybe what do they call Robert Blake's character? Everybody calls him something, and I can't remember what it was. But when he is undergoing...
They just call him the Mystery Man.
The Mystery Man, yeah. When he's undergoing this change in the very final shot, I had a theory maybe he was going to change into the Mystery Man. And that was going to be a third incarnation he was going to embody, and it was going to be him the whole time, which I'm not saying any of it. You're not going to make sense of this movie because it doesn't make sense. It breaks real world logic. So to say like this makes sense over something else, not necessarily. That one thing to say like, all of David Lynch's movies are fantasy. That's what makes sense. None of them, because none of them make any damn sense. But if you take everything at face value, that could be, if that, because then I started thinking like, well, was there a scene where he interacts with somebody else? Yeah, there is. But he was at his place. And if he's an aspect of himself that is invited in, your idea about it being like a supreme evil entity, when he says, I can't remember the exact quote, but it's, I don't go places where I'm not invited, or basically when he's like, well, I don't do that. So those are vampire rules. Those are like, that's a concept of a supremely evil entity that has to be invited in, that you can't, the devil's not going to go where he's not wanted. He'll tempt you, but then if you're like, go away, he will. But if you fall for the temptation, then invite him in, then he's going to come in and show you his wares. That's not a bad idea. I don't know what David Lynch had on his mind. And to say like, if somebody's like, well, he has a pattern. No, he doesn't. He has certain, like the Wizard of Oz thing, the duality of reality that we all have, the dualistic nature that you would have the same people play different characters within the same movie, an entire city being a different city, like LA, being looked at like it's this dream idealistic place where people can come to have their fantasies fulfilled. And then it is at the same time a nightmare, a horror show where people get taken advantage of and ripped off and used and destroyed. It is both of those things. So are these people aspects of each other? Are they not? I don't know. I enjoyed this one, and this is going to sound weird, for the simplistic nature of it. It had these high concepts, but like Mulholland Drive has a lot going on. It's got a lot more. It's got a lot more main characters that have a lot more depth and mystery to them, and that's what some people like about that. Now, I like that too. Don't get me wrong. I don't dislike Mulholland Drive. I just think this one appealed to me more, and I don't know why.
I think with Mulholland Drive, when it shifts gears, it's like a hard shift to almost like a completely alternate take of the movie. Because it's almost like you're rewatching the movie that is a very much different interpretation of the characters. Whereas this one is just like a shift to a different character that may or may not be connected somehow.
Yeah, like, because then let's just assume for a second, the mechanic kid is real. I don't know where I was going with that. Then they somehow, I don't know, switch places, maybe, and then switch back.
I'm kind of wondering, because obviously his parents and his girlfriend know more than they're letting on.
Mm-hmm. That's what I keep referring to when I say characters in this are keeping secrets and they know something.
Yeah.
They're the David Lynch in this film.
So going back to Robert Blake being the devil and them knowing something, what if the kid made a deal with the devil and they know about it? And that's triggered some kind of something with this.
Yeah, see, we don't see his story wrapped up at all. Like, he's just gone, and we never return to him.
But the only two Bridges you have is the...
Jeff Bridges.
Yeah, the porn star dude. Or the porn producer guy.
Yeah.
Because even with that, the stuff seems to precede the start of the movie. But yet, at least that part could not have been, because he dies in that scene. But our original character was at one of his parties before his wife died.
Right.
So at some point, something crosses.
Or time travel happens and is altered. So we see the film, right? That they're at that party with that guy that his wife is friendly with. Toward the end of the movie, the protagonist becomes the younger mechanic guy. They kill that guy in his house. He kills, Dick Laurent is killed by the mystery man, Robert Blake, the weird guy. And then he reverts to his original saxophone playing self and tells his saxophone playing self way back at the beginning of the movie, Dick Laurent is dead. So if the cycle continued on, would that other guy also be dead this second time around in an altered timeline, and things play out differently this time because that one guy is already dead?
Maybe
also,
that was the original deal with the devil, was for him to be able to go back and try and fix something. But the devil allows it to happen, but doesn't...
And is ultimately the person who kills Dick Laurent.
Yeah, so, but doesn't tell him that would necessarily fix his problems.
Damn, I love David Lynch. I love him so much. I like this idea. I'm torn about it because there was another one that I heard. I can't think of it now. I listened to so many, and this movie's so complicated. It gets jumbled in your head. You need one of those charts with all the red, like
string.
the photos all over and the red string running back and forth like a seismograph. Yeah. Here's the thing. I was about to say, I don't think we're going to get to the bottom of it. Here's the thing, though. We maybe did. Somebody might be right. They might not be 100%, but they might be real close, and we'll just never know because that's the way David Lynch wanted it.
Yeah, because had he still been alive, he would not tell us.
No, he never would. And I don't think after maintaining that policy, he was ever going to change. So there's that. There's, he was never going to tell, and he was getting a fair bit older. At this point, he died at, 79?
78, 79, something like that.
And did not change in that regard at all. So we were never going to find out if he lived to 150. I doubt he was going to, at that point, change and say like, okay, you broke me. I'll tell you what they all mean. So we might be. And I think that is also part of his legacy is like, if that's what it makes sense to you, then that's what it means to you. You might be wrong. And sometimes he did say that. He would tell somebody, I think sometimes if they were wrong. And he would give you sometimes he gave hints and things as to something. I'm not saying this specific movie, but on occasion about something. And then other times I heard him say when they were wrong. But then when was asked to clarify, he would then say no.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, the only reason to hold back this much is to let it be what it is to the individual and let that meaning take hold.
I think there has to be some kind of tying point somewhere. What that is, I don't know. But these movies, even though it feels like a fever dream, are still connected. Because this doesn't feel like plot holes. It just feels like mysteries.
Do you mean Lost Highway within itself?
Like, yeah, like within itself, like
as if it is separate films, because it's at times what it feels like it when the mechanic takes over, it's as if a new movie has started.
Yeah, because I mean, like just like in the writing process to flesh out a script to hand to your actors, there had to be some kind of tying something together here when he was writing.
Could you imagine in like 97, not really knowing David Lynch's work or whatever, being as familiar with it, and really this one was it kind of is a bit of an outlier. If you've seen like, Twin Peaks and stuff, it's going to be weird, but could you imagine going to the restroom right at that initial prison scene and coming back and it's like, well, who the are all these people? And then it just goes on for a while and you're like, did I walk into the wrong theater when I came back from did all of you change theaters? Did they change the movie? And they're like, shut the up, it'll make sense at the end. And they're like, no, it won't. And then the guy does come back and oh, there he is. It is the same movie. You guys had me going for a second. That had to happen to at least one person at some point.
Alternate theory, Lone Star fell down the dark side of the Schwartz, and this is all breaking in his mind.
Yeah. So, yet another David Lynch classic. I'd like to do more retrospective, not necessarily just David Lynch, although I wouldn't mind writing down all of his films. I don't think either of us would be opposed, but
no, his movies I think lend themselves to that more easily than other movies do.
I really wouldn't mind doing these retrospectives for other classic films of our choosing, of course. I don't just want to do like Jaws and Jurassic Park and Star Wars. But I think, if you push it, I would. I'll talk about anything. But I would love to do like these hidden gems of movies, any and all of Lynch's work, obviously. I'm a huge Wes Anderson fan. We've talked about that some. There's other auteurs out there. So if there's any weird movies out there that we haven't seen or is not on our radar, let us know.
And Chris says if you get enough likes, he'll do a complete retrospective of Mac and Me.
Yeah, we'll sit down and do a commentary on it. We have been threatening to do this. I'm sorry, did I say threatening? At gunpoint, which I am right now to do that. I don't want to do that, but I will. And if it doesn't let's say we should run a poll on something and see what we can get, because I will do that. But I swear to God, nobody's gonna watch it unless it's like of us. If it's a reaction video, I bet they would. They'd be like, oh, they don't look like what I imagined. is what everyone will say. And then they can watch us miserable for how long is Mag and Me? Too long is the answer.
I'd say probably around the hour and a half mark.
Okay.
Just given the type of movie it is.
So since I would probably have to be tied up, you would have to rig up some sort of Rube Goldberg contraption to feed me popcorn. Now, I don't eat popcorn, so I'm just going to spit it all on you. So if there's any films out there that would warrant this, not just new films, but I'm talking old films, I would totally check them out, even just as a shill advertisement for something that we love, which is what this is. I love David Lynch. I don't think enough people, I gotta say though, just like I did in the retrospective we did a few weeks back when he initially died, I'm still seeing people post stuff. Mm-hmm. I love the amount of attention and admiration and appreciation and homage being paid to David Lynch. That was really endearing to me because I think he's underground. People don't get him. People don't know him. But enough people, the people who loved him, really loved him. Yeah. And there was a lot more than you'd think. Blue Velvet at the Kentucky Theater was pretty full. It was 90% full.
I've seen recently a guy that a tribute to David Lynch who doesn't even watch his movies. He said that he watched The Art Life, and that just Lynch's mentality spoke to him so much that he started applying that to his trade, which is woodworking. Huh. And then he's like, and because of that, he's like, I am now interested in watching these movies.
Yeah, I mean, people can have an influence on you no matter what, like, if it's their work ethic or if it's their mentality and how they go about what they do. You can apply something to almost anything else if it's positive. I hope that sounded vague, but the way that David Lynch searched for ideas for things, that can apply to any art form, really, and really anything else in life. If you're a problem solver in general. So yeah, big up to David Lynch wherever you may be. I don't know what else to say about Lost Highway.
No, not without going back in circles.
Which is what the movie did.
Yeah, but we're not going to. So I think we'll wrap up here. If you went us with us this far, thank you. Let us know your theories on Lost Highway. Do you agree with us? Do you not agree with us? It's like, or what movie should we do next? Let us know that in the comments. Give us a like and subscribe. Follow us on our social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram. We'll leave links in the description below. And until next time, see ya.